Yeah.
Okay, guys, are OAPs really having to go back to work? Okay, guys, welcome to the midweek show. I mean, God, are Fife OAPs, old age pensioners, getting jobs and downsizing properties to actually beat the cost of living crisis? Fife OAP retirees have to make tough choices with the onset of the cost of living crisis. I mean, just because we've got a cap on our utilities now, it doesn't mean to say food inflation and petrol and energy and all the rest of it, this still isn't exacerbating and going up. I mean, growing inflation, unpredictable financial markets with a high cost of living mean many former Fife retirees, people are actually returning to work. And what is dubbed as the great unretirement. Sorry? People are unretired? Some are even bringing forward their downsizing, their house move as well. Quite remarkable, isn't it?
It's very remarkable, and I think actually it's a true reflection of where we are at the moment. I mean, people are living longer and they are more healthier and they're more fit, etc. So some people aren't quite ready to retire. Yep. But actually, at the moment, some people through choice, even if they were wanting to retire, can't. They're having to go back to work because bills are just they're increasing so much, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I keep saying it to everybody out there, and I will give you a start warning. Your next generation, your family, and possibly even you yourself, if you're young enough, will work until you die. So you better start watching our wealth creation shows and learning a lot of information about what you should be doing now to put that off and be able to retire what we call so-called early. I mean, retiring early in the future is going to be 75. Mm-hmm. People will actually say, hey, I'm retiring early because I'm 75. And it's like, what? That's unbelievable. And yet we're thinking now, it's like, God, that's a long time at 75-year-old, but that's effectively what's going to be happening. I mean, what's your thoughts on this, Jimmy?
I've got off the top of my head of what I can remember, which I've recently come to market, I've had 3 people that have either gone away on holidays and just recently and just reassessed because of everything that's happening in the world, reassessed exactly where they are right now and come back and thought, bugger it, if I don't do it now, downsize and retire, when will I do it with everything that's going on? So they've made the jump to do it. And I think we'll see that more and more very soon.
Do you know what I think, though? This is the ramifications, because all these people will probably remember the credit crunch. And I do remember people in the credit crunch when the housing market changed and pensions dropped as a result. I actually had people come to me and say, I can't retire anymore because I can't afford to. And I think this is a flight or fight response from a lot of people. Actually remember that time, and they're not sure that that's where it's coming from, but I think that's where it's coming from. The fact that I better do this now, because if anything happens in the next couple of years, I'm stuck where I am. I'm in this job, or I have to go back to work, or I can't afford to retire and I just have to keep going. I mean, looking at the changing job market, July saw the most significant month-on-month rise in actual old age people working since records began in the 1990s, when 1 in 23 of all the UK's OAPs went actually back into employment. And this is going to be a sign as well for the future, because we have less people actually working now than what we had before, because let's be honest, Brexit's made a lot of people have to go back to where they are. And now we've got to fill these jobs still because the jobs are still vacant. That's why we've got 1.3 million jobs just now and 1.1 million people actually available for them, but they still have to retrain to get that. So that's why I think a lot of OAPs are actually able to come back into the market, because we need their skill. I keep saying to a lot of people out there that why on earth would you want to retire at 65 anyway, if people need a skill like you've got? Now, everybody's like, well, why do I need to work till I die effectively? But it's still giving people a lot more choices. whether, you know, to have that financial capability of retiring. And it does mean that people are actually having to go back and actually continue to work now, because they've now realised that the cost of living crisis is making them reassess it, to say that, no, I can't afford to retire. I'll have to get some sort of job actually to keep myself going and to keep myself in financial security, so to speak.
Yeah, it's true. But what you're, sorry, no, all I was going to add on that, all I was going to add on that, Jim, was the fact that what we're also seeing, and certainly I've got a couple of acquaintances that have done it, and they've retired and they are going back into work, but they're not going into full-time work. But there's such a shortage, as you said there, of skill set, that actually their employers are happy to take an experienced person back 2 or 3 days a week, because actually what they bring to that organization on that 2 or 3 days a week just extends throughout their whole company. So they're quite willing to do that. So they're not having to go back into full-time employment necessarily, but actually they are gaining enough to boost their income and actually keep their skill set refreshed, as well as passing on what they've got as a skill set, which I think is a really positive thing.
Just as a side set, the biggest challenge that we're going to have in the years to come is we've not got enough younger people actually to work. I mean, I'm not saying that they don't, some of them don't work. I'm saying we've not got enough actually in an economy and actual to sustain the economy going forward, because the baby boomers and the generation, I think it's Generation Z, is actually, which is us, are actually eventually going to disappear. And we won't have anybody to replace that income, which is actually sustaining our economy right now in terms of sustaining the national health system and everything else round about us. That's going to be quite a worrying statistic later on. So ramifications of that will come in years to come, probably by the time we are gone. Now, that means really, when we come back to this about the, you know, the OAPs coming back to work and unretiring, 7,753 Fife over 65s are now in gainful employment. That's actually 1 in 8 of them. Now, listen, if you're over 65 right now and you're talking to this, or you're listening and listening and tuning into this show, you know, give us a wee, you know, thumbs up or whatever, or to say that if you're actually still working, I would like to hear from you. If you're actually still working, and why are you still working? It'd be interesting to actually hear that. As a backdrop to the number of working 65-year-olds and above have been increasing since the mid-90s, when 3,332 OAPs were actually employed. So that's almost doubled since the mid-90s. Yet July figures with the largest monthly jump on record by quite a distance. So a lot of them are actually going back to work. What about the property market then, Perrie? You know, let's looking at the change in property market. How was this?
It is affecting it, and you know, we've been speaking to many of our Fife homeowners that are in that kind of age bracket, if you like, and they're having to bring forward their downsizing plans by several years in some instances. And Jimmy just commented on that there, and a few of the clients where he's been working with, where we've actually had that experience, and it has made them make that jump, isn't it? Because they're quite concerned that what will happen in 6 months' time, when they've seen what's changed in 6 months' time in regards to keeping their property going, and the cost of actually keeping that property active and warm, and we haven't really come into winter yet, so you know, that's a big thing. So we've definitely seen that, and it's actually helping them generate money from their downsizing as well. So as well as doing that,
most have paid off their mortgages, and they think that's them in the clear, but what they don't realise is the running costs of the property. It's actually the biggest challenge now, because it eats into their monthly income.
That's exactly it. So what we're seeing is they're downsizing to release some of that capital to actually cover with their housekeeping and their energy bills and all of their other expenditure, because actually, for whatever reason, they may just not want to go back. They might not be able to go back into working life. So they're having to make these certain changes, haven't they?
I spoke about my pension last night to Elaine. I said, oh, we've got this much in our pension. She went, but why? Surely you'd want to spend it at some point in time. Why do you keep saving it? I went, do you want to work until you die? and she just looked at me, and I thought, she didn't give me an answer, but that's effectively it. Do you want to work until you die? Absolutely not. So why would I not save for my future? Why would I not put money aside to a pension? Why would I not make sure I'm protected? The average, and then that got me on a wee train of thought, and I started looking up. The average UK pension is £50,000. That's 2 years at the very most, and you're goosed. You're out of the game. You've not got enough to live on. So that, and this is where I talk about the pension crisis that's coming along and why the government's forced us to take company pensions out, because they can't sustain that model and that economy. So, and this is why the older age generation right now are having to unretire and go back to work, because the huge living costs. You'll never change that. I say you'll never change that. And the reason why I say you'll never change it is because we've now got to a situation where most people in a household now work. And you can't then take the option where one person doesn't work, because then you're halving their income if it's two people. And because your lifestyle has actually moved up to that level of relying on both incomes, it's not possible anymore unless you downsize. Yeah, unless you downsize significantly and you've got a significant amount of money built up in equity in your home, and you can release that money to use for your future. But again, as I say, there's huge ramifications coming along. So if you're out there listening and tuning in, please take time to look at your pension options, look at your retirement options. I actually looked at what it would take for me to have a really fun. Now, I'll be honest, I didn't tell Standard Life about anything else I've got. I just told them based on my pension, and they said, based on your pension right now at age 55, if you want to retire at 65 and you want to have £30,000 a year to retire on, they said you're going to have to put away £2,500 a month. That's a lot of money.
That is a lot of money.
Yeah,
that's more than people earn.
Yeah, and they actually went through it and went through the wee scenario of you know, what if you want to just have one night out a month, that's the pension you need, an income. That's what you need to put aside. If you want to have one night out and have a restaurant as well, and possibly a theatre tickets, that's how much you need to earn. If you want to have this in your holiday, then that's what you need to earn. If you want to have 2 holidays a year, that's what you need to earn. And it actually told you how much you need to put away to make that income, to get that on the average, you know, the average for everybody in Britain. It was actually really, really good. And I might actually show it in one of the wealth creation shows, because it's a real good insight into what you really need to put aside. But thank God I did what I did, because I don't need to rely on that. But it is another way of making sure that the generational wealth passes on to my children later on. So that's why I'm doing it now.
So why would somebody downsize then, Jim, do you think? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, mostly their homes are too big for their needs, really, isn't it? And their children have actually flown the nest. I actually saw somebody the other day saying that to me. I get that quite a lot because I'm in that age bracket where I relate to people my same age. Therefore, I tend to go out to their properties. And when it's usually mostly all the time, it is the kids have now left for university. They're no coming back. And basically, you know, the house is far too big for our needs anymore. We're just rattling about. We're not using all the homes or the rooms, and the garden's too big as well. And I really can't. I mean, I even heard Elaine say the other day, we're needing to get somebody in to help with the garden because I can't do it. And I'm like, you're only 55. It's like, you're not an old age pensioner. Get in work.
Hope she watches this.
No, she won't be. That's why she'll not be watching. She doesn't listen to any of these things. So I could say anything I want and there'll be no ramifications.
I'm just waiting on the comment coming up.
But the government classifies a property as underoccupied if it has 2 or more spare bedrooms. So if you've got 2 or more spare bedrooms, then you're underoccupied as the government standards. So how big is the underoccupation issue in the UK? This is right throughout the UK, how big the underoccupation ratio is. Of the 4.5 billion, 4.5 million, I'm getting carried away, a bit like the government. There's no magic property tree. We can't just appear with properties out of nowhere, just like a money tree. Of the 4.5 million British homes owned by those aged 65 and over, 3 million have at least 2 or more spare bedrooms. They're underoccupied. So you might ask, why is that actually important? Thank you very much for asking, Perrie.
You beat me to it. Well, it's lovely to speak to everybody. I'll just leave the show now and leave Jim to do his own thing. He's asking the questions and answering them.
Well, to start with, it's holding back Fife families that need bedrooms and these spare larger rooms in these houses. And and it offers if the older occupants wouldn't, and it doesn't offer it if the older occupants wouldn't move on. So I think that's the difficulty here, and that's why I say it's why it's important to actually point this out. We need a good mix and a good movement and flexibility in terms of the housing market. So we do need people to upgrade, and we do need people to downgrade. But more importantly, if the first-time buyers aren't coming at the bottom, people in the middle can't upsize, and the first-time buyers can't upsize to the middle. If the people at the top aren't moving and they're staying in their houses, then people in the middle can't move to the top. So we need that circle. It's almost like a circle of life for the property market. We need that healthy balance in the property market where it goes round all the time. I'll do that way because that's a better way, clockwise. I'm doing the other way on this broadcast anyway. So well, to start with, it's home back 5 families, as I said. Also, these larger homes cost more to run in terms of energy bills and other things like building insurance and council tax as well. You know, some of them are on like band F and band G. I know, like, got a 2-bedroom flat, it's like band A. I'd be in there like a flash.
Yeah, it's definitely something to consider. I mean, we hadn't considered this when we upsized, because I've done upsizing and downsizing over the last 5 years, but when we upsized, the property we bought had 1 banding on it when we bought it, and that was fine. But I'm being honest because we didn't do our homework, right? So again, lesson for everyone out there, do your homework. I didn't do my homework properly. And I've learned that now that I'm in this industry, of course. But when we then sold the property, and when everything completed, and it became ours, and Land Registry got hold of all of that, because there had been an extension put on there, our property actually jumped up 2 bandings.
Yeah.
And that wasn't expected.
The council never used to do this, but the legislation states that once they can't come round and do it when you're in situ. They can't just reassess the banding, but they can do it when it's sold. So the legislation is quite clear. It actually says in the council tax legislation, and they've never enforced it until now. It's only the last 2 or 3 years they've actually started to do it, because I saw it come through when one of my friends said, how come I'm paying that? And how come somebody else is paying this? And then I started to notice I sold a house to a first-time buyer, one of my stock I've got, and their banding jumped up to band B from band A. I'm like, whoa, what happened there? Because it's no difference to the rest of them. There's not been any added value put onto it. So why are we changing bandings? And then actually that's when I started to ask the council tax department, why is this happening? Well, the legislation actually dictates for that. And my first response to that is, show me the legislation then. And they did. Showed me the legislation, and it's, they're absolutely right. They can change the banding if they want when you're in situ. So not when you're in situ, but when you move. So when you sell the house, somebody else buys it, the council tax band is more than likely to go up. They'll only ever want to put it up. They'll never put it down.
No.
Brings me back to the energy bills, though. Jimmy, from October, what will the average energy bill cost?
Well, even with the recent energy bill cap, it will go up on average £354 per month in gas and electricity, alone for a large 4-bed detached family home.
Yeah, that's about right. I'm sitting on 300, and I think I'm sitting on 397 as my monthly contribution on a budgeting scheme that they've got. So they just do, it's like, and they calculated 397. So that's 400 quid. So it'll be about 5 grand for my bills. No earth shattering, but if I was younger, I'd be going, holy shit, I can't afford that.
But Jim, that's still a fair whack of money, though, every month for your gas and electric for anyone to manage. And you can see how some people who perhaps have not been in a position where they've got pensionable amounts that they can sustain, like we've spoken about earlier on, and then they get that huge impact of that triple, quadruple in some cases bill. People don't factor in for their bills going up £300 or £400 a month. It's just not something that you do. So something else has to give way.
I think that'll be what's happening as well when people that are older people that are considering downsizing, they'll have their direct debit set up, they're on their smart meters, then all of a sudden they're not looking at anything, and then all of a sudden it jumps up massively or goes up, and that's when they realize they need to do something, downsize or do something about it before it's too late, because they're not checking on it regularly like everybody else.
I think that's the point, Jimmy. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I was just about to say that. It is the fact that when you get to that point, you think, okay, I've made it, I've paid off my mortgage, I didn't have any debt. You don't look at your bank statements really. You don't keep an eye on everything from a day to day or even a week to week. You're like, I know my pension's going in, I know that's coming out, I'm kind of okay. And then all of a sudden out the blue, it's like, well, wait a minute, hold it. So how am I in overdraft? And then you start to look at it and think, oh, I never knew about the energy bills. And then it's the food. You know, food, I mean, you know, they're saying the average inflation's about 10%, but the reality is food inflation's around about 15, I think.
Yeah.
According to some the numbers that are getting banded about. So it does. So why are there so many mature homeowners in their 70s, 80s, and 90s still living in houses that's too large for the day-to-day requirements? Why is that?
Well, I think there are several reasons for it. One of the most obvious is emotional attachments to family homes.
So it is. How many times do we go out to a home and it is a big emotional decision? And I often we're out to the valuation, and I do say that a lot of people, if you're thinking about selling in the next 1 or 2 years and you've been in your home for a long time, I would suggest you get us out now to talk to you about it now, so you can at least get over that transitional hurdle, because you'll probably not make a decision right now, but you don't want to leave it till 2 years when it's critical. And then you have to decide there and then, because the emotional stress it causes you is actually quite overwhelming. So if you're an older person in your 70s, 80s, and 90s, get us out now so we can have a chat with you and give you your options about what you can do and what your home is worth, to give you an idea about what you can do for your future in the next 1 or 2 years when you do decide to sell. Because we're expecting you to get over an emotional hurdle, and we don't want you to leave that to the last minute because you'll be forced to do it.
Yeah, me and Perrie were talking about that with a listing. Me and Perrie were talking about a listing that we got on right now about the emotional journey that they're on. But I was actually out talking about the cost of living and everything like that. I was out to a property yesterday where it's been empty for 3 years. And obviously they're paying all the bills, but on top of that, they've been paying a gardener £200
double council tax.
Yep, and they've been paying a gardener £200 a month to tidy the garden because they want it to look like it's lived in. So accumulate that over the last 3 years at £200 a month to keep the garden looking tip top.
That's about £7.5 grand, and then you've got double council tax, which takes you up to probably over £10,000.
Yeah, just lying there.
Now, the fortunate thing is, if they're sold now, then they would probably at least get the uplift that they've had over the last 3 years, which is about 30%, which is actually a good thing. But in a market which is quite stable or maybe declining, that's going to be money in the fire, effectively. So the saving grace is the uplift in the property prices over the last 3 years, but that will not continue to last. If you've seen my article in the Courier, you know, I basically said it's not going to be a boom to a bust. It's going to be a boom to a leveling out. However, I suspect, because the government are coming in with the additional help over the next 2 years for the utilities, that possibly maybe boom is going to take off again.
Yeah.
Because people still have that money. They're injecting 90 billion into the economy. I mean, you've got to think every single time, as Warren Buffett says, every time somebody does that, you've got to then think, and then what? What happens next? Because everything you solve, you create another problem. And I'll say that again, because I tell you what, do that with your own life, because it's true. Everything you solve, you create another problem somewhere else. It happens every single time, regardless. I can show you every single thing that somebody's solved, and it's created another problem somewhere else. And
it's cause and effect, isn't it?
Yeah, it's cause and effect, exactly. And I never actually used to focus on that or see that at all. But it was only in the last couple of months I went, wait a minute, I never really thought of it like that. It is cause and effect. You solve something and something else happens. Easiest one of that is, I'll give you this tablet that's going to sort you and make you better, but you've got to take this other tablet because you're going to feel sick every day as a result of taking that tablet. And then you've got to take that tablet because that tablet's going to give you the runs. And that's going to stop you having that. And it's the cause and effect. So as you're providing a solution for one thing, it's causing a problem with the other thing. So it definitely is cause and effect.
I think when we talk about it as well, though, Jim, and you're saying about, if people are in that situation, get us out now. And the solution of the get us out now might actually be that you can give them some other tools or ways that they can generate financial funds.
Yeah.
Which doesn't necessarily mean that they need to sell their home if they don't wish to, or certainly not yet. So there's other ways that you can do that, isn't there? It's not necessarily that the answer is to sell it. There might be other options there.
No, I mean, I could walk into somebody's house and give them advice and tell them, and at the end of it, I'll more or less tell them sometimes, I wouldn't sell your house now. And these are the reasons why. So I would never say just, I wouldn't sell their house now. I would say, these are the reasons why I wouldn't do it now. Or I would go now, and these are the reasons why I would go now. And then it's up to them whether they want to do that or not, based on the evidence that I present to them and the facts. So if you're thinking of selling, or going to be selling, or going to be letting, or going to be renting, then make sure you get the facts first before you start on that journey. And that all comes down to actually make sure you speak to someone that actually knows what they're talking about, an expert. And I wouldn't even go to the point of expert anymore. I'd go to the point of speak to an authority on it. Speak to someone who knows everything there is to know about that particular thing that you're wanting to know about. It's expert to authority. Authority is like a Yoda, knows everything about anything in that sort of market. That's the type of person you speak to, because they don't just know that market, but they know the bigger ramifications of that. They know how it will affect other places in your life in terms of planning and stuff like that as well. Or they'll know the people that you need to speak to next. A classic example of that is I'll sit down with someone, and then, or we'll sit down, as we do, we'll sit down with someone, we'll chat to them about their life. And the first thing I ask someone when they walk into the room is, why am I here? And they go, to sell the house. No shit, Sherlock. It's like, yes, I know I'm there for that. Why have you got me out in the first place? What is behind this decision? Why do you want to do this? And often it's like, well, we want to downsize because the bills are too much, or the family's now left, so it makes sense to downsize. No, paying out all that money for no reason at all. That's my thought process. It's like, save as much money as possible, tight get. Or it could be like, we've now got to sell because our younger daughter or our son, they've had a grandchild of ours, and they're over on the West Coast, or they're over in, over in Edinburgh, and we need to be there beside them to provide child support, because I'm driving over there every single second day, every other day. And it's now taking its toll on me. So we've now come to ramifications. As much as we love to live here in Fife, we have to take the decision logically and with the head now, rather than the heart, that we need to be near our children to help and support them. Because as I said, most people, everybody in the family has to work now. You don't have the luxury of having that choice now of whether somebody can stay at home.
You're right, and I think that's one of the things that we really do at the outset is you've got to understand the journey that someone is on, because actually then what we do next, it's like you've just said with Warren Buffett, it's like, and then what? So we need to understand that journey to understand what the then is.
How could I tell? How do you think I should sell my house? I don't know. You've not told me anything yet about why you're selling it, or what you're selling it for, or the need behind it, or the ramifications about if you sell it, here it is. So it is about talking about all these different scenarios that can play out of the decisions that they are taking. So if they tell me what they actually want to try and achieve, or why they want to do it, or the reasons behind why they're trying to do it, then I can give them the answers. As plain as that. It's not just about giving a valuation. It's about helping you manage life as it happens. And that's what we've always believed. We're not just estate agents. That's, fair enough, that's our business and that's how we make money. But the bigger picture is more important to us than actually just selling a house. It's what they want is more important than what we want.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so the second one that is saying, so we'd obviously talked about the obvious one is emotional attachment in the family home. The second one is to escape the hassle and the costs of the house move. And finally, a small number of suitable Fife properties for them to buy to attract them to make a move. That's here. Okay, the growing energy bills. It's clearly obvious that we've discussed this. I've provoked many of these mature Fife homeowners who maybe can't or do not wish to get a job to reevaluate their home life strategy. I'm seeing an ever increasing number of mature Fife homeowners downsizing, or as I prefer it, right sizing, to diminish their monthly expenditures. So, Perrie, how much could mature Fife homeowners gain by actually downsizing? Can we quantify that in some sort of way?
I think we can. I mean, when we look at the average differences between the sale price and the subsequent purchase of maybe the average downsizer, what we're seeing at the moment is Fife downsizers could unlock on average £116,700 per household on average in Fife.
Wow.
By downsizing.
Wow.
Because like you said earlier on, a lot of these people are in a position where they may not have necessarily any mortgage owed on the properties.
Yeah.
Chances are they don't. So, you know, they've got all of this value in the property.
So somebody that's in their 70s, 80s, 90s could potentially, on average, some will be more, some will be less, and we'll just say that figure again, can unlock £116,700 in their hand, tax-free. That's not taxed, because that's their equity that they built up over the years that they can now use for the enjoyment of what they need to do on a day-to-day basis. So the ones that say, look, I'll get a part-time job because I need to earn maybe about another 10 grand a year. It's like, well, that would do them another 11 years.
It's true. I mean,
and then they've got their income as well from their pension. So that then would go on top of that. So that then would do another maybe 9 years. So if you're in your 70s, you're obviously going to have enough money to rely on to comfortably live till possibly your 90s or you're 100. And let's be honest, most people are away by then.
Well, that's it. I mean, it gives them that lump sum cash, as you say, to then kind of manage it over a tenure of time that suits for them.
Yeah.
And it extends their retirement. So if they're in the situation where they don't want to or can't top up their income by working, then that's an option for them. But not only that, it's not just the money that they can release from the home, but it's actually the savings that they'll make on their energy bills as well. You know, at the moment, they could be saving themselves around £169 a month on their energy bills by downsizing from, say, a 4-bed to a 2. And I can actually completely endorse that, because that's exactly what I did. So when we downsized, funnily enough, Billy and I were talking about this at the weekend, and our energy bill at the moment is half of what it would be if I hadn't downsized.
That's another £2,000 a year on average.
Yeah. Our energy bill, we reckon we're saving about £190 a month because we downsized. Yeah,
that's over £2,000. And when you look at the logic of that, you have to earn at least £3,500 to £4,000 to actually get that £2,000 in your hand, because you've got tax and national insurance and pension contributions that come off.
Yeah.
So the effort you need to put in to earn 3.5, for example, then work that out and what you're getting now. For example, the average salary is maybe 30 grand. Then you're talking about 1/10 of your time that you work is just to pay for the extra utility bills and things like buildings, insurance, and council tax. We're having a bigger house. So 1/10 of the time you work is the luxury of having a bigger house. So so effectively, 4 hours a week, if you're a 40-hour week, you'll spend on just spinning wheels because you've got a bigger house. So if you downsize, you will then be saving yourself the time of having to work 4 hours a week. Now, I'll be honest, when you get to your older generational years, the time is the most valuable commodity you'll ever have. And when you're younger, you don't actually realize that. You don't think like that at all. But time is the only commodity which you run out of. And you have no choice. It's ticking whether you like it or not. That second that just passed an hour will never be recovered. It's gone.
You know, it's a really true thing.
We all start off with the same amount of time in the morning, 24 hours. And it's how effectively you use these hours in the day, which will determine where your future will be, both economically, financially, and health-wise as well. It's how you invest your time in yourself and how you use it, because we'll all start off with 24 hours every single day.
It's so true. My old mum, God bless her, she used to say that to me. She passed when she was 75, and she said to me, Perrie, you will be amazed at how quickly the time goes as you get older. When I was, say, Jimmy's age, I never used to really appreciate it. I used to think, it's nonsense, 24 hours is 24 hours, you know, it doesn't make any sense. But actually, now that I'm in my 50s, I can absolutely say in my mid-50s that time definitely goes quicker. And see, what you hear when you speak to people is they always say, I don't regret anything, but I just wished I had more time.
See when you say things like that and you hear people saying that, do you do what I do and you immediately go, I'm 55, that's me got 20 years?
Yeah, I do.
Honestly, that's what I think. Every
Yeah.
single time I hear somebody when they're like they only live till 65, and I go, holy shit, I've only got 10 years left. And it's like, what do I need to do in 10 years? It's like, oh my God, I've got a big list of stuff to do, and I need to get it done now.
Well, according to Elaine, what you need to do is start spending that pension money.
I mean, actually, I could retire right now if I wanted to. I have had several attempts at trying to retire.
I think the first one.
It doesn't work for me, yeah. It doesn't work for me. This is retirement. I love doing what I do, yeah. Every single day, get up and yes, you're beauty, punch the air, and this is what I'm doing every day. I've got a pulse. That's all I need to know. I've got a pulse. It's going to be a great day, and that's all you need to know. As soon as you get up, if you're still here, it's going to be a great day. That's as far as you can get. You'll never be upset that way. You'll be always content.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So, what are the options then for mature Fife homeowners, Jimmy?
Waiting 12 months to make a move might mean you are putting your Fife home on the market, as every other OAP homeowner puts their home on the market, meaning the dynamics of the local property market will probably be a lot different. Plus the equity you release. Right, yeah, and the equity you release on the downsize could be much lower if you wait longer of what we've seen in the market right now.
Yeah, because we've talked about this, obviously the inflationary effect, and I suspect the Bank of England base rates are going to go up again on the 20th of September or the 22nd. They've delayed it obviously because of the Queen with the Queen and the death of the Queen, because they were meant to do it last Thursday, but they've actually moved it on to I think it's the 22nd, and they're going to release that information about whether they're actually increasing base rates or not. I do suspect it's going up, because now we're in a position where they're now predicting, instead of going to 14 and 13 and 14%, and because the energy bills are now capped, they reckon inflation's going to be at 10. I think they'll think it putting a wee bit more on the base rates will actually help curb inflation and possibly bring that back down from the 10 a bit more. And whereas I'll be honest, if it got to 18, you're wasting your time by putting up a couple of, a 1/4% or a 0.5%. That's not going to make any difference on 18, but 10% is possibly unachievable to try and get it below that and consistently bring it down. I definitely think that's where we are with that. So you're right, Jimmy. Waiting 12 months to put your house on the property market, it gives you complete uncertainty, because we do not know the ramifications about what's happening so far and how the economic situation is going to pan out, because it's the what if scenario of all the money that's been injected into the system. And you've got the war in Ukraine, let's not deny that's not there. And you have got a global issue, because we're now a global village. So anything that has an effect in America or an effect in China will have an effect on us. And I know there's creaks in the economies in America and China as well. So that will have a knock-on effect to us, absolutely, because we'll all buy and sell off each other, import and exports. So that's another thing. That's why I wouldn't be waiting 12 months. And even if you want to wait 12 months, just make sure you get the proper advice first. Make sure to get the facts first. Make sure you find out from an expert or an authority in the field that you're wanting the facts on. Whether it be pensions, whether it be financial services, whether it be a state agency, whether you should let your property, whether you should rent, whether you should sell and rent, all these different scenarios, whether you should change your mortgage. Get the facts first before you make a decision to say, I'll just wait 12 months, because the facts might indicate that you need to go now. But that'll be your decision, not the person speaking to you. But at least you've got the facts. Yeah.
I think also one of the things to think about, Jim, is when we're talking about the facts, and you were talking about the multipliers over 12 months and how much a saving would be, but also an expenditure. Some people might think, well, if I do have a mortgage, I'm going to pay another 12 months mortgage payments, and then my mortgage will be less and I'll be in a more secure place. But actually, when you look at your 12-month mortgage payments, then your 12 months extra energy bills, your extra cost of living over 12 months, actually, are you saving anything? And will your property value be there at that point in 12 months' time anyway?
Well, we just demonstrated the other now, it's over £2,000 on average by downsizing now. So you've lost £2,000. There's the opportunity loss. You've lost £2,000 of a saving because you've kept a hold of your house right now. If house prices don't move up in this next 12 months, and possibly they might go down a bit, then you've lost that as well. But you've still lost £2,000 in the extra energy and everything you've got to pay. And you've lost also possibly your health, because you're stressed.
Yeah.
So that could have a major effect as well, because you get stressed and you get, upset and uptight, and you begin to wonder whether you should go now or not. And then it's like, well, for God's sake, just get the facts. Just find out for somebody first before you, and then you don't need to worry about that. We spend so much of our time worrying about things that don't happen. We don't actually take time to think about the things that can happen. More energy is expended on what won't happen. And do you know why I know that? Because I used to do it myself. And most people do it. Most people do it right now, don't they? Exactly. It's anything happens in their life and they immediately go, what if so-and-so does this? What if so-and-so, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if this happens? Where will I be then? And then they go through the emotional turmoil of the whole process without it actually happening. But in the book of Dale Carnegie, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living, he says, but there is only one outcome, and you should just go and do it, and that outcome will happen. And then therefore, you'll no need to expend any energy or any stress at all on the outcomes. It didn't happen. So, some of you will be worried, though, if you went now and sold your house. And you'd be worried about finding your next home. Well, not to worry. Why shouldn't we worry, Perrie?
They shouldn't worry about it. I think we get the common answer we get as well. But if I go and sell now and I haven't found something I like, I'm going to be homeless. That's the constant that we get, isn't it? And I think the thing that people need to remember is that actually no one is forcing you out of your house at any one point in time. You are the homeowner. You decide. And if you've got an agent who understands the journey that you're on, then you can actually manage that timeline to suit what they need. And any prospective buyer will fit to that timeline, because if their home is that new buyer's dream home, they've waited long enough to find it, they'll wait long enough again.
So let's give us an example of that. University Avenue in Pittenweem. When I went to see them last year in August, so not this August just past, the August before that, they said we're getting a new house built this August and this year, 12 months later. So we're getting a new house built in a year's time. This is our situation. This is what we need to do. This is how we need to do it. When should we sell? I went, okay, based on the information you've just told me right now, and the need that you need to move to that house only, the new build, and you don't want to move to rent accommodation, I would say put your house in the market now. Sorry? Now? It's 12 months away. I says, but that's not the point. If someone sees the home of their dreams, which yours home is, and it's the ideal one for them, you've got enough time to then plan that process out. But you've also got the time to find the right buyer who will agree and pay the right price, but more importantly, give you the right entry date. And if that buyer's and even though in the worst case scenario, if you don't put it on, guess what? Nobody knows. You're no further forward than you were before. But if you put it on right now, then at least you've got some certainty that you can get enough activity on it, and therefore you can get somebody to agree to it. Now, if somebody comes along and says, I need it in three weeks or 4 weeks or 6 weeks, the answer to that is no, because you're not agreeing to the entry date that we want. It's not about, I've given you the price you wanted. Why am I not getting my house in 2 months? Because I've not got somewhere to go yet. That's why. So go and do one. Look for the next house then, if that's the case, because you're not getting mine, because you're not agreeing to my entry date. It's as simple as that. Now, can you do that if you're not in the market? No. You've got uncertainty if you're not in the market. You don't know where you are, who's interested, and what they'll agree to, because you're not on the market at all. And guess what's going to happen if you're not in the market? You're going to wait to the last minute, the critical moment. You're going to put your house in the market. You'll maybe not get the activity you wanted. Therefore, your house won't sell, and it'll be even worse for you. You'll maybe get somebody saying, I'm only going to pay you that amount, a lot less than you expected, and it'll be even worse for you, because you'll have to accept it, because you've now put yourself at a critical point where you have to do a decision now. By putting it on early enough, it gives everybody time to plan the process to make sure their move, because even if the other person has a house to sell, you can then get the price you want and them to agree with you, and they sell their house and they get somebody else to agree, because they're going to take a month or 2 months to sell their house now, because that's the average now. It's going to take 2 months. So if you get your house sold in 2 months and go now, and you've got somebody else that comes along and says, I'm going to buy your house, and it's in 2 months' time they give you the offer and it's accepted, you've got 3 months to get it concluded. That's 5 months away, on normal sense. But if they've got a house to sell, they've got to sell their house. It might take them 2 months, and then they've got another 3 months. So you're 2 months from then. So you've got your 2 months that you had, then you've got their 2 months that they've had, and then you've got the 3 months from the solicitor. You're now 7 months in. Yeah. And if they've got a buyer and they take 2 months, you see where this is going? You've got 2 months, you've got 2 months, and then you've got 3 months to get the solicitor over again. You're now up to 9 months. We're almost at the year. See how that works? But in that scenario, everybody's got certainty. Now, how do we get certainty out of that? Because we get everybody to conclude missus, and we get everybody to pay non-refundable deposits. So in the instance, University Avenue, concluded missive straight away, £10,000 non-refundable deposit. So you can't back out. We're agreeing to a 12-month degree. Now, the great thing out of this is the next thing that happened out of this is it then allowed them to find the next house that they wanted to, and they found a suitable in between in the January, and they pulled their entry date forward from August there, and they pulled it forward to January, and the person went, hallelujah, I can move in earlier. And they went, I can, perfect house I want to go to now, because we've now found a house that's a good in between for us, a good fit for us, because it didn't suit their circumstances at that time. So it allowed them to find that house. Guess what would have happened if they didn't put their house in the market? They would never have found that house.
No.
And they would never have got their next house. And their house is now completed, more than likely, up in Inverness, and that's them settled in their new build home. As easy and as smooth a transition as that. Completely stress-free. Look at the alternative. I'll leave it till the last minute. I put my house on the market, but don't get the result I want. I have to accept the first offer that comes in the door, which is a lot lower, and then I have to agree to somebody's entry date, which means I've got to move out earlier into rented accommodation before I can find my next house. Which one's better? Every single time it's the first one.
It's all those pressure points as well, though, Jim, isn't it? It's the pressure point and the unknown that is causing more fear than doing nothing.
It's the fear of the unknown which causes all the stress. We can guarantee, and I'll say guarantee, that you won't be made homeless if you or we can't find another home for you to move to, because it's only you accepts that. It's only you as the seller that accepts the offer from the other person and agrees to their terms. If you don't want to accept it, you just say, no, I'll wait for the next person to come along. Oh, but what happens if my house sits in the market for so long? Everybody might think it's no wanted. Everybody might think they should reduce the price. That's not the case. It doesn't work like that anymore. If your agent has the right attitude and the right negotiation skills, your agent knows that it's not how long your house has been on the market, it's how long your buyer's been in the market. And if your buyer's only made a decision that day to buy a house, and it's your house, they're excited. They're not going, oh, that's been in the market for 6 months, I might get it cheap now. No, they're excited. They're wired and fired and waiting to go and ready to buy a house. So it's not how long you've been in the market, it's how long your buyer's been in the market. And equally as well, it's how long, it works that way as well for how long you put, you know, if you get your first offer in the door and it's like, it's like, oh, that's a great amount, but I'm going to wait. It's like, well, wait a minute, deal or no deal? Open the box and end up with 1 pence because you knocked back the banker on the first offer. It's like, I'm not into that. It's how long the buyer's been in the market. The buyer's probably been in the market looking for the best house for 6 months. Your house comes on and they jump at it straight away. That's why they're wanting the house, because they've been waiting 6 months. You've been on the market 6 minutes. They've been waiting 6 months. So that's why they're excited and want to buy it straight away. That's where you've got the upper hand. You can negotiate, or your estate agent can negotiate on your behalf for a better price, better entry date, better value, and better result. It's actually, I'll say, an outstanding result. There's an exceptional level, and there's just outstanding. And I've got to say, that's what we do. I'll get double doors to get my head out. I'll get a set of patio doors installed in the new studio so I can just double doors so I can get my head out at the same time. I mean, we don't need to say that really. I mean, you know, 98.2% approval rating with 280 votes in the ESTAs, which is the state agency Oscars, shows that and demonstrates that straight away that our customers think we are actually outstanding. Exceptional is the 4 stars, outstanding is the 5 stars, and they think we are outstanding at what we do, as well as exceptional. Okay, so this is all about having peace of mind. I mean, to be honest, let's finish off there, unless you guys have got anything else to say and add to this. As you know, Perrie, what's your final thoughts on this?
Get the right advice, get the facts, make a decision based on that, not what you think you know or what you think you're hearing. Get it from the experts.
Yeah, Jimmy?
Yeah, I'll just reiterate what Perrie's saying. If you want to control your future and the end result, then get people out and the experts or the authorities out and get the facts and make a decision from there.
Yeah, absolutely. My final words on this: you don't know what you don't know as a seller and as a buyer and as a landlord, as an investor. And because of our experience well, for me, over the last 30 years, and also the industry and experience as a financial director and financial controller, it, you know, allows me, and the knowledge that we acquire all the time and the training that we do every single week allows us to know these answers to the questions that you want to ask. But you'll never know them unless you pick up the phone or inquire with us to get that information, which is the facts, rather than basing it on opinion. The last thing you want to do is listen to someone down the pub while you're having a pint who's unemployed and has no money at all, because they'll not be able to teach you anything because they would have been there already. And it stands the question: if you're going to, I mean, if you hurt your arm, what's the first thing you do? You go to a doctor. You don't go to the joiner, do you?
No.
If you want to have fun, if you want to be wealthy, you go to somebody that's wealthy and knows what to talk about. You don't go to a broke person, prop him up the bar with his pipe or her pipe. No, what would be quality here. If you want to know the facts about your house and your circumstances and what you should do next, you should go to an estate agent. That's it, guys. Thank you very much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. And everybody else watching out there, if you've got any comments after that, please feel free to reach out to us. You can message us direct if you don't want to put them in the comments as well. More than happy to take your questions and actually help you on that journey. And remember, you don't know what you don't know, and it's all about us helping you manage life as it happens. And it's bye-bye from us.